So Svetasvatara Upanishad, we are on the 13th verse of the second chapter. That's page 118. I'll read the Sanskrit for my sake. Lagutvam arogyam aluluktam varna prasadam swara saustavam cha gandha shubho mutra purisham alpam yoga pravrittim pratamam vadanti. Now, after the initial practices and of pranayama, of sitting down still and converting those material energies into a kind of a spiritual energies, which is done by the analogy of rubbing two wooden sticks. In the old days, they used to rub two sticks to obtain fire. So that constant churning within, that's the practice of yoga. So, and now as those energies are getting converted, the sage speaks about those indications. They say that the first signs of entering yoga are lightness, health, non-covetousness, an agreeable odor in the body, and scantiness of urine and feces. These are the signs of entering into yoga. There are other signs also. I mean, from the psychological standpoint, they've he has just spoken about non-covetousness. I mean, you don't try to take anything that belongs to any other person. That's simple as that. It doesn't belong to me. And amazingly, this can go to the very extremes. One time, Sri Ramakrishna was prescribed lemon juice. So it wasn't the season for lemons. And one of his disciples, Yogananda, he scoured the area and finally discovered there's one tree that has lemons. So he asked of the owner, "Can I take a lemon for Ramakrishna Paramahansa?" "Oh, yes, sure. There are plenty." And this kept on for a few days. One time, the disciple plucked the lemon, brought it to the master, and Sri Ramakrishna couldn't take it. He said, "What? I bought it from the same tree which I get it from. And why can't you? Oh, there's something wrong. Go and inquire." He goes, and it was found that the lease had expired the previous day. So technically, it was asked the permission from the next owner.
Because the lease
Yeah,
had
the lease.
expired.
Amazing.
Yeah.
In the Vivek Chudamani, of course, we have other indications. What's the first signs of entering yoga is we're saying Vak Nirod. You start controlling what you say or speak. And the second is you don't have any, what do you say, desire for things. You know, I might say, okay, I don't want this chocolate. But in my mind, I might say, yes, I could use it. Why not? That is kind of a asha. That's kind of a hope that probably I'll get it later. Maybe I don't want it now. Maybe I can get it later. Then there is an act of jealousy, maybe, and you, because you've started practices of yoga, you've kind of shielded yourself. Now, it's not just technically; it means isolate yourself. it's not isolating yourself, but those yoga practices itself will keep some of the people away. Those who don't, you can say, vibrate in unison with your mind or your character, they are somehow kept away. Yeah, we were talking last time about this aura. You know? There are some who are attracted by your aura, some who are repelled by your aura. So, but the practice of yoga or the chanting of the mantra, what it does is kind of creates a kind of a ambience around you, and that is what is a kind of a protective shield. So here we have the other example Swami Vivekananda gives is, suppose there are different musical instruments tuned alike in the room, perfectly tuned. You play one, and all the instruments vibrate. Yeah. So that is so. If you are on that wavelength, you will attract such people. You know, if I'm angry, then you will have 10 people around you. Yes, you know that is bad. This is bad. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you're feeling saintly, you won't find anybody because there are no saints around. Or you might find one or two. Yeah, then you find a kind of a mm, resonance with that person. You know, it's like that. So here in this mantra, they say the first signs of entering yoga are lightness. Yes, it's kind of a your body feels kind of light, and otherwise, what happens is you feel a kind of a heaviness, a dullness, like things are pulling you down. You sit down to meditate, you feel so heavy. You want to work, you feel so heavy that you feel like let's have a nap. And oh, so the moment you start practicing these disciplines of kind of a lightness, at times you look down whether am I still walking on the, on the ground? There's a kind of a joy in your heart. You've undertaken a journey and you know what the results are going to be. So there's, you can say, that energy, that enthusiasm, and you keep on. So there's a kind of a lightness also, psychological and physical also. You feel kind of lightness. Then we have health, of course, yeah. That's because with the practice of pranayama, what has happened is prana is actually the doctor in your body. Oh, yes. If you can, and you have broken its, you can say, cycle, its movement, and then you control that prana. And that prana, as it keeps on suffusing your body, it pushes away all that diseases. So that's you feel healthy. Then, obviously, there's a low body consciousness, which is also a sign of health. When you're healthy, you have less body consciousness. Like you have a pain in the knee, and you know that all the attention has gone down to the knee. Hard. It's hurting. It's hurting. Your body is simply dragging you down. Health, non-covetousness. Yes, everything. It doesn't belong to me. Simple as that. And why should I? Why should I even think about other people's, you can say, objects or thoughts or property? A kind of a deep satisfaction arises in the person. No, these are feelings that you cannot really express. A kind of a contentment that comes, and I'm fine, perfectly fine with everything that I have. I don't need anything. And then what happens is we have this dependence on God. God also says that whatever a devotee requires in order to attain me, I supply it.
And that might include hardships, right?
You are tried, of course, yes. You are tried. They say whether this guy is going to persist or no. Let's see. After the first glow of enthusiasm, we tend to become a little complacent. Okay. Yeah, I've done enough, but then and then we slow down, you know, and then we become more or less what you would say, uh, yeah,
Soft. That is passive.
yeah, 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 Anthony, yeah, please, because that's good. You just need to tell us. uh, so Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. I carry everything to the devotee. So the devotee is depending on a higher power for any of his or her needs where yoga is concerned. A clearness of complexion and a beautiful voice and all these things. Yeah, but then we should not take these things, as the only standard. The kind of a, when Swami Vivekananda one time he spoke on Christ. I think it was somewhere here in California. If I'm not mistaken, it was San Francisco, I believe. Yeah, I can't get it. So after that, Christ the Messenger, after then he was sitting in the carriage along with MacLeod, Josephine MacLeod, and she's saying there's kind of a white light emanating from, and we shrunk in kind of awe and fear, and then he said, kind of oh, I got it, I got it. What did you get it? What did you get? Swami?" I know how that soup is made. The South Indians, South Indians, they have a kind of a rasam, there's a soup. Oh, oh. So, no, it wasn't that the material and the spiritual worlds were different for him. It's one. But this was that kind of, you can say, not just a halo, but an actual light emanating from. Sri Ramakrishna used to have this kind of. And then he prayed to the Mother Kali, Mother, give me internal beauty, not external. And then that light merged into him once again. So a beautiful voice and an agreeable odor in the body. And yes, this is. I have also met people who have this kind of that wherever they go is a kind of a some. You've lit some incense or you're wearing some perfume. It's a kind of a divine odor. One time, a Swami who was like this, teaching the Upanishads to a group of brahmacharis, novitiates. And he was a great soul. And as he was teaching, he goes into a kind of a trance, samadhi. And the brahmachari, they were looking at him, this is what you've read, in the books and scriptures. After a while, he came down to normal consciousness. Okay? He looked around. Don't you get that fragrance? Aren't you? No. Oh, really? Say, you see, some of the gods had come and they were desirous of listening to these Upanishads. Oh, and they have left. And that divine fragrance, their divine fragrance still lingers. So that's why I asked you. So here we have, and it's agreeable, is it? But in a sense, and scantiness of urine and feces. This is also part of that. You can say yoga processes. First thing is you tend to eat less. You tend to eat nourishing. You don't go for junk food anymore because the food that one eats goes to build up the body, and as that body, so is the mind. So the aspirants are advised to eat sattvic food, food that is pure. So that's not something that is hot and spicy, like like uh, you'll get those activity rushing within you. It's called a rajasic food or the tamasic food that makes you dull and indolent and sleepy. You eat and you want to sleep. Then you know that's tamasic food. So when you eat the sattvic food, you tend to become alert and fresh. So that so
Uh,
much for these signs.
Rice is a tamasic food. People eat rice there all the time. Everything knowledge.
Rice ferments in the stomach,
Uh,
and that gives you a kind of a sleepiness. So yeah, but then uh, there are millions of people eating and living on rice, but it depends on the quantity also. Because I eat some nice sattvic food, but I eat in massive quantities. That won't do. So there are rules for that also. Mm. In the scriptures, half the stomach has to be filled with food, 1/4 of it with water, and the rest is left empty for the for air. It's kind of a churning, and the stomach churns. So if you keep on loading yourself, it gets overworked, keeps on. So all your energy goes in digesting that food, where that energy is supposed to rise up to the brain to practice yoga. So these are the various things. And this is the food that has been the food question has been quite intense especially in India. Right now, it has become that crystallization has not become so intense. It was that even a person looking at your food, a person other than your mother or your siblings or anything, uh, it pollutes that food. Yes, it has an effect. Uh, these people they try to attack that practice because they feel like what is this rubbish? It has got nothing to do with eating food. But people's intentions, the person who cooks, that person's the quality of the mind is transmitted in the food, and you can see it. You go to a restaurant where you have a nice cook. That is the person who's nice, and one who's constantly angry and annoyed, and if that person cooks, you feel the difference in the food. So that's why in the Vedas, ahara shuddha, when food is pure, ahara shuddha, sattva shuddha. The sattva element in one's body becomes pure. Sattva shuddha, dhruva smriti. Then the memory becomes unfailing. Memory of what? Memory of spirituality of God. And then through that unfallible memory, then you get liberated. Uh, technically, all the knots of your existence are opened up. So that's the reason why they say keep your food pure, keep your food pure. After Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Sri Krishna of Swami Vivekananda, Sri Krishna advised Swami Vivekananda, now you can eat food for a few days by your own cooking. You cook it yourself, or the or your mother can cook for you. and feed you. Other than that, you cannot. That spiritual, you can say, experience which has entered the body will become loose and it will vanish. So it's necessary to eat correctly.
What about the wandering monks who were at the
Oh
mercy
yes,
of
yes,
what
yes, yes,
was
yes,
given
yes,
and
yes.
what,
But
how
food,
might that
yes,
affect them?
yes, but that food, the very act of spiritual begging, that you've got to eradicate your ego and also get a few, you can say, bad words also flung at you. Hey, what are you doing? Begging like this? Get a job. And you got to swallow your pride and so on. So, food obtained by begging is extremely pure. And Sri Ramakrishna used to, at one time, he encouraged us, go and beg your food. And then he took a portion of it and saying, oh, this food is very pure. So,
But it was the monk who purified it by their attitude.
yes, and even in India, when a monk comes, oh, it's a kind of a great occasion. And wow, we are blessed. They give a small portion of the food. And so that is a kind of a sacramental food then. And they are told not to tax one family more than. So you've got to, even if they give you sufficient, they have sufficient food, you only behave like a bee does. Collect honey a little here, 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 here. So 3 houses or 5 houses. Don't tax one house only. Beg. So there are some people who will stick to this. Take a little food here, take a little food here.
Whereas when sometimes the nuns over here they became sannyasini and they are supposed to beg,
Even we have to do that.
but they ask
Devotees,
ask,
yeah.
but then they
This
say,
is America. You
oh,
you might you might end up in jail. What are you doing? Begging here.
I see. But
So
then,
we'll wait for the questions after this,
oh, sorry.
towards the end. So we take the next verse on 119, 14. तैव बिंबम मृदो उपलिप्तम तेजोमयम भ्राजते तत् सुदांतम तद्वा आत्मतत्वम प्रसमीक्ष देहि एककृता तो भवतो वीत शोक. That's it. So like a disc covered with clay shines as full of light when washed well or cleaned well. Similarly, the embodied being visualizing that very reality, which is a self, becomes non dual, self fulfilled, and free from sorrow. This is the idea. In the old days, even before mirrors were invented, or discovered rather, maybe China, we had it, but they could have used a kind of the analogy of a mirror. But in the old days, either they had copper or bronze or silver or gold, you can say mirrors, highly polished, you can say surfaces. And that used to act like a mirror. Obviously, good enough. Uh, so the same analogy is given that if that mirror is now dirty, it's being kept in a kind of a place where it's being neglected or it's dirty, it's covered with dirt. And as you keep on cleaning that, it shines in its original, you can say, brightness. Similarly, this embodied being, which is there, right, that also, once the dirt of ignorance is cleaned, then it shines. As they say, becomes non visualizing that very reality that's the self, the Atman, becomes non-dual, self-fulfilled, and free from sorrow. Now we have this idea of How does one visualize one's own self? That means there is an element of duality. You are seeing yourself. But in the scriptures, what happens is there are two words that kind of a, they say it is illumination, prakasha, like a kind of a light, kind of prakasha. And there's another word called vimarsha. That is a kind of a reflection, not in any substance. That very illumination has a quality of reflection. So what happens is that light knows itself. It's something like this. A kind of a self-awareness at the highest level. Like we are here now, we are self-aware. We are sitting here and we are talking and listening, and that's on the very lowest level of self-awareness. We are aware of our physical being, and probably something in the mind we are aware. But when it comes to the highest level of self-awareness, it, this is what happens. That's why the word uses when that yogi he visualizes that Atman. That is, he or she becomes self-aware or self-conscious. That I am the Atman. I am not this kind of body, etc. So, what actually brings about this kind of relative existence? What there are three factors Vedanta says. First is the aspect called avidya, ignorance. This is not the ordinary ignorance of I don't know what's in that book. Okay, I can learn what's that, and I can remove that ignorance. But this is the technical meaning of the metaphysical, you can say, power that creates all this universe and hides that reality. You got Avarana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti. Vikshepa is thrown. It throws out this creation. At the same time, it covers that reality. That is called, for a better translation, is called ignorance or non-knowledge. That's better. Non-knowledge.
Is that a video?
Yes, yes. Non-knowledge. So what non-knowledge does is that illumination, that original illumination, it, as it were, shrinks that illumination to a kind of a point. Then the second aspect of non-knowledge comes in. Avidya, kama, that desire. I am one, let me be many. It brings in duality. It objectifies that small point of awareness of consciousness externally. And then comes karma. And then you set the wheel in motion. And it keeps on and on and on and on. We are just talking about what happens at the very end of this creation. So there is no end of creation in uh, Vedanta philosophy. It's creation is a continuous process. It manifests and then it does not manifest, but it's there. So it's creation. It's the word uses projection. Like nobody created this tree; it projected itself out of that seed. So it's like that. So then, who has created that uh, seed? No one has created. Another big tree produced that seed. So it's a kind of a cyclic process, keeps on and on and on. Because if you say there is an end of time, you've put also technically an end to God. If creation ends, then the creator also is without any kind of work or job or anything like that. What does the creator do? So they said, no, we cannot let our God uh, have an end time. He's eternal, he's infinite. Let it go. So creation also, projection also is like that. It is a wave. It moves on and on. It rises, falls, rises and falls, rises and falls. That's a continuous process. So creation and creator are like, two parallel lines, like the lines of a track, railway track. So if you have one, you will have the other. Of course, in Indian philosophy, there's no two. There's actually one. The creator is in the creation. That is important. The creator is in the creation. So what is this creation? It's the body of that creator. Because the moment you separate the two for explanations, yes, we have a creator and then a creation. Yes, but bring these together and then you have an idea of what Vedanta really is. This everything. So and so this he visualizes, he sees. That is, that person becomes self-aware. And what is that content of self-awareness? That yes, I am the Atman. I am neither the body, nor the mind, nor the ego, nor the sensory or the motor organs, nothing. So he sees that self within himself. And then that yogi becomes non-dual, self-fulfilled, and free from sorrow. Yeah, these are the things. You're not really bothered about free from sorrow and all these things. There's an end to sorrow. But just to kind of make it attractive to those who study this thing, see, there's an end to sorrow. Okay, because existence, just existence, this existence is a painful reality, and the mind has repressed many of those pains so that we will not be able to operate. There's a continuous death process going on in our bodies and outside also. If you become aware of that, uh, you'll not be able to work. You can kind of a morbidity that gets into you. What's the point of working? What's the point of living? Everything is suffused with death. But they don't see the other side. It's renewal also. The renewal is spoken of as destruction, constantly being renewed. So you be free from all sorrow. So individual life is, once you become the universal life, then you're free from sorrow. Yeah.
Question. When you said the creator is in the creation, creation is the body of that creator. First question is, would that be qualified non-dualism? And
Yes,
second,
yes, yes.
yes. And second question, would you say that God is both immanent and transcendent?
This is yes. This is the idea.
Okay.
This is the idea. When God he enters into creation, he does the God does not completely exhaust himself or herself. So there is a Purusha Sukta, Tripadas Chamritam Divi. There's only one path is the world, all the various worlds. We see this world and think that this is the only world. There are other existences. Like we don't think about a worm or an ant, but they have their own world. They have their own life. But we are dismissive. Oh, it's a low existences. Oh, really? Who said so? They are low existences. That every life is interdependent. with all life in this universe. So that ant might be small to you, but cumulatively, if you take the weight of all the ants in the world, they outweigh the humans. Yes, that's what it is. There are so many ants, and you call it insignificant. Oh, yes. And and now with bioengineering, they're studying ants like mad. How can these guys lift more than 10 or 20 times their own weight? And how do they grip things? And how can they lift things? It's a marvel of creation. And everywhere you find a kind of a novelty, a kind of a genius. How life has adapted there in that, you can say, space, and it's living. And very sophisticated life. We should not think that it's unsophisticated life. Oh, no, life is extremely sophisticated and extremely precious also. That's important. So and then if you say there are higher beings than us, they'll say, oh, humans, oh God, they're quarreling and shouting and fighting all the time. Yeah. So even the and so what is this, guys? Like we are dismissive about ants, and he will be dismissive about human beings. We think too big about ourselves, and uh, we should, in fact, if we study life, we should be humble at how it's manifesting. Wonderful, and how fortunate we are in being alive. So this way. So that person becomes self-fulfilled and free from sorrow, becomes non-dual. So that's the idea. See, what happens is uh, when the means were presented, they appeared so esoteric, do this and do that and this and this prayers and that prayers. But as you come down towards the goal, things become, the teachings become very clear. All that's, you can say, ritualism and all that, you can say, secret rites and everything are left behind. The mythology is left behind. Now we are just talking about direct experience. So here we are. So this is what the yogi realizes there. And so it's like that. The mirror, or the piece of, you can say, metal, uh, which is used. And the mind is a kind of like a mirror that is coated with all the dust and dirt from the world. And that has to be cleansed. And it is not attaining something, it's a cleansing process. You obtain what you already have. You don't acquire something. Because if you have to acquire something, then it's not you. It will be you plus something else. That's the reason why they say that it is, you already possess that thing, you've forgotten about it. You just did. So Swami Vivekananda says, if a king goes crazy and he rushes out of his palace and tries to search the king, he will not find the king because he is the king himself. So similarly, we are that self, pure, immortal, self-fulfilled, and beyond all sorrow. And we are searching that. Where? In this and that, in objects. And then we say, somebody tells us, what are you looking for? I'm searching for myself. Oh, really? You've lost yourself. You've lost your mind, probably. And now yourself is there. That's your self. Oh, really? And that's a guru. So we have been, like I said, due to that ignorance, non-knowledge, and duality, the karma, the desire, and karma, they form a kind of a bond around us. And every time we try to think of ourselves as not the self, we throw another you can say, chain round us, and we become bound. So it is, and here no one can help you. You've got to do it yourself because you actually know where your faults and how to correct them. No one else. The guru might orient you towards it, but if you keep on sitting down and saying, "Oh, the guru does everything," yeah, the guru makes you work a little. He doesn't give you everything. So what happens is you need to eliminate some of the errors that you had created, wrong perception or whatever. So as a result, this person now becomes free. Okay.
We're conditioned reflexes. That's what we have to break through.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Sri Ramakrishna says that you, in a dream, you dream that you've been chased by a tiger, and then you snap out of the dream, but your heart keeps on palpitating for a while. So that's what happens. We are on the path of the ultimate good, and we are going towards it. But some of our old, you can say, habits, reflex actions are still dragging us down. We need to just come out of that. And as you come out of this, we need to shift our center of gravity. Uh, you are now existing and thinking that I have a body, I have this, I have that, I have this. We need to shift it to the mind and then to the intellect and to the individual soul. And there you will find that you do not need really anything. That your very essence actually holds this creation together. And your essence is nothing but part of God. So the next verse, I think we can uh, just read it and then we can, on Friday, we can take this explanation. I'll read the English translation. When the yogi realizes here the reality of Brahman, which is birthless, unchanging, and untouched by all the categories of nature, as the very reality of his own self, that is comparable to a lamp, then the yogi becomes free from all bondages by knowing that deity. So the Upanishads had begun with the questions of what is the cause of this universe? They brought time, faith, all these various things, nature. Then the Rishi Svetasvatara says, no, it's that deity, inscrutable deity, which is self-luminous, who has created everything. Because you need a creation, and you need a creation which is actually divine. Vedanta teaches that. If God and creation, the creator and creation are one, that means very clearly that this creation is a divine creation. It is not a material creation. If you have time or nature or cause or any other thing, this creation becomes a kind of a material creation. You got it? So when the moment you bring in God, it's saying that's a deva, that's the deity, that is that self which has created this thing. The moment you say that entity has created this thing, that you create, when the deity creates, that creation is divine. That's what the Bhagavad Gita also, Daivi Hesha Gunamai. This, my Maya, is divine. So we are seeing this divinity, but covered up through non-knowledge. We just need to peel back the layers. And there we are. The same creation will appear as that body of God, the Sagun Brahman or the qualified Brahman. And as quite often I give the example of Swami Vivekananda was joking about this reality. Oh, these sages must have been hmm, crazy, drunk probably. Then Sri Ramakrishna touches him and then he sees everything. Actually, it's divine. Then he says, those sages weren't wrong. Creation is. When Sri Ramakrishna he goes to Kashi, Banaras, he sees the whole city as you can say luminous, like shining like bright gold. Kash means light. This is Kashi. It's a city of light. Today, if we go, before I came to the States, I was there for a couple of days. That's because it's such a holy place. I wanted to go and make pranams to Shiva. So see, for me it was a city. Of course, at the back of my mind, I was I was aware that yes, it is it's a body of Shiva, and then somehow I don't know. I just discarded my footwear, and I was walking about barefoot. So another monk says, What are you doing, walking around barefoot?" I don't know if I have ever come back to Kashi. Let me take the dust of the feet, and besides, the dust itself is holy. It's nothing but the body of God. So here you have our vision sees this city, as any city, with roads and people and cows and bulls and this and that and so congested. But for Sri Ramakrishna, the whole thing was light. So similarly, when we see this creation, we see it as creation. Oh, there will come a time then this vision, your vision will change and you will see the real thing. That is the realization of reality. We stop here for now. Now you can ask